I'm DBJ, and welcome to Tips and Tricks Tuesday. I am your self appointed third pillars, and we're going to talk about when to ask for and when not to ask for a die roll. This has been an on again, off again subject for many years in role playing games, and it comes and goes in its cycles. And one of the things that when you hear someone say, the rule of cool, or ignore the rules, or change the rule, or you'll hear people say, "Well, just play by the rules." Rules as written. One of the things that is always an issue, no matter how stringent you hold to the rules or how variable you use the rules, the one constant is the fact that there is no constant as to when, how many, how often, and should you or should you not ask for a die roll. Most often, this involves whether a player is reacting to a situation or becoming an active participant. And let me give you an example here, because I love to give examples so that you and I know what page at least I'm sitting on, since I can't communicate with you directly. All right. How many skill rolls do you make when you drive to work? How many skill rolls do you make when you cook a meal or write an essay? The issue is not whether someone has a skill or not, or whether someone is or is not capable of performing an action. Sometimes it's a matter of time, energy, and resources, and whether the time, energy, and resources it takes to complete that skill requires a skill roll or not. For example, if someone were to build a house, do you ask for one skill roll, and if they fail, the house falls? Or do they have the time, energy, and resources to essentially not fail that skill roll? Now, have there been people who've constructed homes and did a half-assed job or did a shitty job or something? Yes. Are there people who've made honest mistakes in surgeries? Yes. But we're talking role-playing games, and how do we adjudicate the use of a role or not to have a role? Now, as usual, I usually don't write too many notes. I'll come up with like a couple of bullet points and then I just go off. So I'm not sure how many of these situations apply, but just hear me out. One method that game masters and dungeon masters use to adjudicate whether a role is necessary or not is, are you under stress? So, for example, you could have player characters drive around a city, but how often will they fail a driving test to drive to and from work? Maybe not often enough to warrant the dramatic tension it would cause to have success or failure. So, one method is stress. Are you under gunfire? Are you under a time limit? Is there impending doom? Okay. So, usually, when time, energy, or resources are taxed, is usually a good time to ask for a skill check. So, time would be you have to drive 95 miles an hour through heavy traffic to get to the hospital. Energy is another one. Are you sleepy, stressed, tired, injured? And then resources. The automobile you're driving, is it bullet ridden? Does it have one flat tire? Are you being chased by the authorities for the tension? Those kind of things. Is it about to run out of gas and you only have a limited amount of gasoline to drive through the post-apocalyptic wasteland to get to the border of this neighboring barbaric tribe or something? So usually it's whether you're under stress and whether your time, your energy, or resources are taxed. This one goes hand in hand with another one, which is, does it make dramatic or narrative sense to have success or failure be involved in the skill check in question? So, for example, you're playing Vampire the Masquerade, and your PCs are driving around town talking to contacts. Is it building tension for them to drive and have a car accident or a flat tire or run a red light and be pulled over by the police? The answer would be yes or no. Will it build dramatic tension for your vampiric, player characters to be pulled over by the police and have to explain their motives at 2 o'clock in the morning with, blood on their hands and a dead body in the trunk? Sure. Maybe as a game master, your narrative impulse is that it is not necessary to have that happen because the tension will build when they arrive at their new location, maybe to dispose of the dead body and to, wash the blood off of their hands when their elders specifically told them not to attack the enemies in Society Hill. So that method does it make narrative sense? And then lastly along with narrative sense is the sense of, okay, how do I say this? Is the success or failure enough to move the story along? So if a police officer pulls them over and is only going to give them a ticket and a warning, and that's as far as it's going to go anyway, what would be the point? Now, could one of the player characters then kill the police officer, and now they've created another method of tension for them? Yes. Okay. Here's a third one, and that would be, my brain just went blank. The third one would be the success. Not only is the success and failure, does it add tension, but what is the professional ability level of the player characters? Now, I've been using this for years, and yes, 5th edition wrote it down, but remember, in 99% of role-playing games, there is a rules as intended. And one of the rules in 5th edition, which I know many of you game masters and dungeon masters out there already do this, there's the idea of passive perception, right? It is the general unconscious ability for someone to perceive things around them. But all other skills and all other games have this technique. You find the average roll, you add their ability to it, and then as game master, you can then extrapolate how professional, how experienced, how instinctual they are in performing a set action. So an example would be, instead of having to make a driving roll to drive around the city, you can say to one of the player characters, your character is streetwise. You know not to drive in this neighborhood at 2 o'clock in the morning, or you will you will draw the attention of the police. Or maybe a player character is a warrior, and they are accosted by bandits, and you explain to the one with the most combat experience, even barehanded, you can take these guys out. One's drunk, they seem malnutritioned, they look threatening, but they are no threat to you with your level of expertise. You can do this with any skill and just make the assumption, thereby giving your player characters the assumed experience level that they have created their character for. Hey, you're a wizard. You know that using this spell will create disaster for yourself and others. Hey, cleric, you are completely aware that the gods in opposition to yours have assembled armies against you, and they have used a demonic pact to summon evil from another world. And this is a good way for you to offer up clues. So instead of having to roll for a clue, you hand out the clues based on the expertise, the experience, the instincts, the professional ability scores and ability levels of your player characters. So do you ask for a roll or not? Now, there's kind of a negative connotation with hand waving. And I would say that hand waving certain things um, is necessary if in the course of hand waving as a game master, you're also using the give and take rule. And the give and take rule is, if I take something from the game and to use it myself, I then give something back into it. So for example would be, I'm not going to have the rogue roll to see if there's pickpockets in town. I'm just going to take it for granted. I'm doing my take and then I'll give later. So I take for granted, hey rogue, bands of children are running around, and you noticed out of the corner of your eye, one of them is setting up a commoner to have their pocket picked. One of the children locks eyes with you and gives you a nod, noting, almost as if they are kindred spirits. You know them, they know you, they know to leave you alone. All right. Now, when I described this very quickly and off the top of my head, did I have the rogue make a roll to see if they would be pickpocketed or if they noticed something? No. But now that I've taken something, I'm also now going to give something, maybe a clue. You notice that one of the children pickpockets a commoner and steals something very valuable and makes a run for it. Or one of the children gives you the eye, gives you a nod and glances up at a paint on the wall. You notice with your thieves' cant that it's like a graffiti and gives you details where the local thieves guild is located or something like that, or whose territory this is, which crime family controls it or something. And then the player characters then can take that information and run with it. You're not saying that they won't ever be pickpocketed. You're not saying that they are free from harm. You're not taking away all of their agency. What you're doing is you're setting the seeds. You're sprinkling the little bits and flavor in there so that your player characters can then use that information to drive the story. Because maybe your story is, I want them to meet this, troll that's a Jabba the Hutt type of individual. If they fail the role, then what? Right? So lastly, should you ask for a role or not? The answer is, if there's failure, then what? If there are no consequences for failure or success, then why ask for a role? Or if the course of the game is that they will succeed in gaining something, whether it's information from an NPC, finding a clue, finding a secret passage, why bother having them make a role to begin with? So let's solve the situation of, what if you ask for a role and in your head you're like, oh shit, I don't want them to make this roll, because what if they fail? And of course the player has already picked the dice, made the roll, and they roll a critical failure, or they roll something so low they know that they've failed. One idea is to start at the most basic bottom level. So let's go back to the rogue who's just entered the city and sees kids pickpocketing. Maybe the base level is, rogue, you will automatically notice these kids pickpocketing people. And then however high the roll is from that base level, even on a critical failure, they notice this. And then as the roll, when you look at that die roll or dice roll or dice pool roll or whatever it is, whether you're rolling D6s or it doesn't matter, percentile rolls, if the roll is higher, you then grant even more information to this particular encounter. So you can add another clue. You notice they've stolen something very valuable. You notice, the pickpocketing kids look abused. You notice one of them glances up at the painting that's like signage or like graffiti that notice which crime family rules this town. Maybe you notice that, there is an elder, an adult who's masterminding all of the little pickpocketing kids in the town. Maybe you notice guards approaching from doing a sweep or a patrol after the kids because they know the kids pickpocket, visitors in town, and that's driving away and messing with the economic situation in the bazaar when people enter the city in the first place. So let's summarize here. Okay. Should you ask for your players to make a die roll? Yes or no? And the answer is no matter what game system, they don't tell you every situation when you should ask for a die roll. No, there isn't a game. What you have to do is adjudicate whether you should ask for a die roll or not, and the ramifications of success or failure. If you ask for a die roll and you realize, well, it really doesn't matter the success or failure, then instead, what you should just do is use a variable metric. They make a low roll, okay, they get a little bit of success. They get a high roll, they get all this other extra, whether it's information or what have you, whether they're using survival or stealth or whatnot. Maybe they're trying to persuade an NPC to get some information out of them. And you go, you know what? I'm just going to have them get the key. They need a key to unlock a door. I'm just going to hand them the key. And then you give them more information. Maybe the NPC is scared of someone they're in league to. Maybe the NPC owes money to the same individual they're handing the key over to. Maybe the NPC has told someone else that they're going to hand this key over, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you just stack one on top of the other. So anyway, this is a Tips and Trick Tuesday. I hope this is helpful. I hope this sparks some thought. Comment below. Like, share, subscribe, whatever, all that kind of business. Leave comments down in the dungeon for me if you disagree with what I'm saying, or you agree, or you're just like, you know what, you also forgot about this other thing, which I often do when I make videos. So I'm DBJ, your self-appointed third pillarist. I'm a contributing writer to Critical Hit Publishing. Our materials are over at DriveThruRPG. You can find all the details below as well if you want to check that out. So anyway, thank you for your attention, and hopefully you'll stay tuned for more.